Hi, I'm Will from Venture to Roam, and I'm going to show you exactly how I find epic off-road trails and camping spots. If you've ever wondered how all these yahoos on YouTube find amazing trails and great places to camp and overland, this is going to be a great video for you. It doesn't matter if you're an overlander, a hiker, a motorcyclist, whatever. These techniques work for everyone, and I'm going to show you exactly how I find trails like this, and camping spots like this, and like this, or like this. We'll cover how to find epic trails, different tools to use in discovering if it's epic enough for you, and how to find those campsites you see on YouTube and Instagram all the time. And for beginners, I'll cover the different types of trails, the different types of camping areas, and how to use the tools to even start looking. But if you just want my mapping techniques, you can skip ahead to that section in the chapters below. Okay? Let's do this. So you're thinking about getting into overlanding, car camping, off-roading, whatever you want to call it, and you see these places on YouTube full of drone shots and epic views and everyone's having a great time, and you're like, I want that. Well, here's how to do it. First, you gotta know what you're looking at, and you gotta know what's okay versus what's not okay? So let's quickly cover the different types of roads and trails. First, be sure you are on public land. This is a non-negotiable. You have to make sure every time you go out that the road, trail, or whatever you're driving or hiking on is public and it's open for use. Public is important because you can't just go driving on someone else's private land without permission. And depending on where you are in the country, that's not only illegal, but it can be dangerous. So don't screw around. Stay on public land. Now, just because you're on public land doesn't mean that it's open for you to drive and camp on. So take a look at the area you're visiting, see what kind of public land it is, and then find out if it's open. This is super easy. Both Guide GPS and Onyx Off-Road have good info on trails, but nothing beats calling the Forest Service or BLM office and talking to someone in person. So if you're not sure, just do that. Now, I like to break trail types down into 3 categories. The first one is maintained roads. Now these are dirt roads that are taken care of, graded, plowed, and are generally wide, flat, and easy. Maintained roads are super fun to drive in a built-up 4x4 rig, but generally speaking, you can drive them in just about anything without massive issues caused by the road. Number 2 is an unmaintained road. Now these are exactly what they sound like. They are roads that were created once upon a time for mining or logging or forestry access or whatever, but they're not important enough for like general travel that the Forest Service of BLM spends money to maintain them. There is a huge variety of conditions on these roads. Sometimes they're overgrown, sometimes they're washed out, and sometimes they're just perfect. You just don't know until you go. So for these types, you should probably have a bit more off-road capability in your rig just to make sure you can get yourself out should you hit some technical terrain. And 3, the last category I have is a trail. Now, a trail is less than an unmaintained road. It's something that's kind of a road, but also not really a road maybe. Like think of the Rubicon Trail, right? It's not the Rubicon Road because it's got a bunch of craziness in it that's just not a road. Trails often have big rocks or boulders or big washouts, trees down, significant water crossings, and other fun stuff that can ruin your rig and ruin your day if you're not prepared. But if you are prepared with a high clearance capable rig and high quality recovery gear, they can be some of the most incredible experiences you can have in a vehicle off-road. Think Moab, Rubicon, basically any Jeep Badge of Honor trail. Okay, now let's talk about the different types of camping areas. There are 4 basic types of camping spots. 1, full service campgrounds. These are like what you see at state parks and national parks. They have water and electricity hookups, full plumbing in the bathroom, showers, all that stuff. So to me, these are like luxury retreats. But the price you pay, other than the actual cost, because you do have to pay to stay at these, is that you're generally camping right next to a bunch of other people. So if you like people and you like being outside and you like having all those amenities, these are great. Number 2, hosted campgrounds. These are campgrounds that generally are smaller and have some basic services like potable water and a vault toilet and a host that's paid to stay there and help you check in. And yes, take your money because these are also not free. They're generally more rustic, but can also be quite cramped and crowded, but are great if you want something a bit more off the beaten path. Number 3, dispersed campgrounds. These are rustic campgrounds, usually with vault toilets, fire rings, picnic tables, but they are not hosted. These tend to have a bit less people, but they're also much more unkept because there's no one there to keep them up. However, these can be located much farther out from civilization and therefore have less people if that's what you're looking for. And lastly, number 4, dispersed camping spots, not campgrounds. These are what I'm going to focus on in this video, and they're basically very rustic camping spots that generally have a makeshift fire ring and nothing else. So you have to bring your own water, bathroom, and be totally self-sufficient. These to me are like little hidden gems in the backcountry. So if you want to go way out, be totally alone, and be totally self-sufficient, these can be an amazing way to enjoy nature. Like real deal nature that's not curated, protected, or filtered in any way. So if you're just beginning, my advice is to understand those 4 different types of camping spots and basically just start at the top and see how you like it. You can kind of work your way down the list in each category until you figure out what you want more of. Kate and I started at a state park with our 4-year-old and 18-month-old, and then we didn't camp again for like a year because we learned quickly that we were not really ready to handle toddlers at camp. All right. Let's talk about how to find these trails and spots. So first, don't just ask for GPS coordinates from YouTubers or Insta spammers, myself included here. It's kind of like cheating. And it's super annoying when someone's like, hey, I see you found this awesome stuff. Can you just send it to me? I don't give out GPS coordinates because I think part of the adventure is actually participating in the discovery of places to go. So embrace the route discovery as part of the adventure and don't just ask people for their coordinates. Okay, second, for the love of all that's holy in the world, go to Tread Lightly and read up on how you should be driving on these trails. Do not leave the trail with your rig. Do not create a bypass around an obstacle or a puddle with your rig. Do pack out your trash and do your best to leave things better than you found them. So these trails and these camping spots will stay open. Okay, here we go. Finally, the first thing you have to do is to find your inspiration. Now, what I mean here is sometimes you don't even know where to start looking. You know you want to have a super amazing, incredible experience, but you might even feel helpless to find a place that will live up to those expectations. So I think I can help. Here's what you got to do. Look local first. Don't put pressure on yourself to go to places like Colorado, Utah, or California unless you already live there. Look locally first. I think the easiest way to do this if you're brand new to it, and this is something I still do all the time, is join and ask a Facebook group. So search Facebook for like overlanding, insert your local area, or off-roading, insert your local area, and see what comes up. Chances are you'll find something that's at least regional to your area. Join the group, tell them you're looking for interesting places to go, and see what comes back. I still do this when I'm looking for new information on areas, and sometimes I get crickets, but a lot of the time I get help. Now you can also do some simple Google searches to see what comes up. Use terms like dispersed camping or off-road trails, overlanding, car camping. I don't know, just use some of those terms and see what comes up. What I like to do then is to just look at the image results and browse through until I see something that catches my eye. And of course, do the same thing on YouTube. Now, you might get a bunch of junk videos on YouTube, but they don't have to be great videos for you to like see the area and see if you're inspired to go there. But if you do want good videos, head over to Adventure to Roam and watch some of ours because we have some incredible epic adventures that showcase certain parts of Idaho and other parts of the Northwest. So if you're looking for that, head over to Adventure to Roam and subscribe right now. So that's how I find my inspiration on where to go. But how do you get there? Well, that's step 2. There are some tools that can be very useful, ones I use all the time. I use AllTrails. I just have a free subscription to look at what off-road trails are like in the areas. I like seeing the pictures of the folks who've been there, and I like to read the reviews. Another tool I use at times is Trails Off-Road. Now, this company has put a ton of effort into giving curated trail information. They have 2 kinds of trail reviews. One that's very detailed with pics and vids, and one that's like a scout review that just has some basic info and a few pics. Both can be very useful. I personally know some of the folks who go out and scout these trails, and I think they do a great job. Another really good resource for finding routes is onX Off-Road. I think they've taken more of the crowdsourcing approach, so they have a bunch of trails, but they're not as carefully curated as Trails Off-Road, so there is some risk that the trails might be different than you expected. But I can tell you that like a ton of my other YouTube overlanding friends use onX a lot, but it's not my main finder. yet. Okay, secret weapon. Well, it's not really a secret, but use Google Earth to drill down on a route you found. Google has great satellite images that let you zoom in and get a sense for the place you're thinking of going. And you can flip it into 3D mode and get a really good sense for the terrain. It's like not perfect, but it really helps visualize the place you're going. Again, always make sure the places you are going are public and open. Now, onX gives you a lot of good information here, but it never hurts to call the Forest Ranger Station or BLM office and have a chat with them about the trip. They're usually like really, really great. Okay, you're like, Will, I already know how to use the phone and the internet. That's not why I started watching this video. I want to know where the epic spots are. Okay, let's get into it. Here's what I do. I take my research and my inspiration and start mapping the route out in Gaia GPS. Now, this is my favorite tool because it has a ton of different layers you can add to your map, each one giving you different information: public, private land, satellite images, precipitation forecasts, cell coverage, wildfire activity, you name it, they probably have it. So I use a topographic layer on Gaia as I'm entering my route, and I look for certain topo patterns. So when the lines are stacked together like this, that means it's super steep elevation, rise or drop. And when the lines are far apart, it means that it's relatively flat. So I start looking for spur roads or spots near the main route that are flat on top with steep drops on either side. These spots are generally those lookout type spots with vistas. For example, this one right here. Here's one of my favorite camping spots that's close to Boise. It's been featured in this video and in this video, which you should totally watch if you haven't yet. So this spot has become a home base of sorts. And no, don't ask me for the coordinates because I'm not going to give them to you. But I found this spot because I was planning a route near the South Fork of the Boise River, and I was looking at the topo lines thinking there's got to be something along this river that has a view. So I followed this little spur road right here to this spot, and kapow! It's super epic. Now, I had marked a lot of other spots along that route just in case that one turned out to be a turd, but it wasn't a turd. Like, no turds here. It was super epic. Here's another example. When I mapped the route that was featured in my Black Lake video, or the We Drive Idaho's Most Beautiful Road video, which if you haven't watched yet, you totally should. It's a really fun video with some incredible views. Here's what I did. First, I Googled Black Lake and looked at the photos and was totally inspired to go there. Then I asked some local Facebook groups if they knew anything about it, and I got some good information there about the lay of the land. Then I looked at onX, AllTrails, Trails Off Road to see how one might get there. Then I went to work on the route itself. I was really interested in driving a bunch of ridges to get there. You can see that right here. And I found a way, I think, to maximize the views along the way. However, I had seen this road called the Kleinschmidt Grade that went up the side of Hell's Canyon and thought, well, hell, that looks cool. We should totally try to drive up the side of the deepest river canyon in North America. So as I was searching for places to camp around Black Lake, I looked here and saw there was a campground. But because I know it's a well-known place, I assumed we'd have to share it. So I started looking around the lake for other dispersed spots and found this one right here on the lake. But it was away from the campground. And when I find one like this, I click here, drop a pin and an icon that shows camping. And a quick toggle on of the satellite layer on Gaia GPS can give you a sense for whether or not it's in a clearing or in the middle of trees, which will usually dictate whether or not you have a view. Also, Google Earth is great to have up in another browser, so when you find a spot, you take a look and really get a sense for what the views are like. So here's the lake spot. Okay, now here's the South Fork of the Boise River spot. I mean, safe bets these are going to be great spots, even if you haven't seen them in person yet. So now we route. So now that you've found your inspiration and found your spots and you know how you might want to get there, it's time to actually route it. Now, I use Gaia GPS exclusively for this. I love having all the layers at my disposal. So you can see here that my Gaia looks like a bowl of spaghetti, but that's because I'm a nerd who dreams in topo and I'm constantly routing things. In fact, I think I might have an addiction. I should probably talk to somebody about it, but let's take a look at how I do it. So let's use the Black Lake example from earlier. So open up Gaia GPS on your computer instead of your phone, which works great too, but most of the time I like to use a desktop because I can swap back and forth between open tabs on my browser. In Gaia, select the layers you want to use. I use MVUM, Forest Service, Public Land, Private Land, Gaia Topo, and Satellite with labels. So first, toggle on the public and private layers and make sure that the route you're looking at is not on private land. This is so important. Like, let me give you an example. So I was planning this route over Steens Mountain in Oregon, which is pocked by private land, lots of old ranches out there in Oregon, and I had to thread the needle to stay on public land, which you can see here. And that really changed the route. And in hindsight, I think it changed the route for the better because there was lots of roads that like no one had been driving on before, which was really cool. Probably nobody was driving on them because they didn't want to put in the effort to weave through those private areas. And sometimes you'll even have a public road that passes through private land. So if you're not sure, call the Forest Service station or the BLM office and just ask them and they'll tell you exactly what you can and can't do. So to create a route in Gaia, just click here on the Create Route button, which opens up the routing tool. And I think this is pretty great. You can click on where you want to go. And the cool thing about Gaia is that it'll like snap the route to the trail. Now this isn't a perfect feature though. So sometimes it gets a little squirrely and snaps the places you don't want it to go, but it's pretty great. Okay, so on the Black Lake trip, I had to find a path up the side of Hells. Well, I knew the Kleinschmidt grade was created in order to get to Cuprum, Idaho based on some research I'd done. So it was a safe bet I could easily route to that part of the drive. But then I had to get from Cuprum to Black Lake. Now, look at this map. It's a mess. Roads are going everywhere. So it can be really easy to take a wrong turn. And Gaia's routing tool can sometimes help you, but in this situation, I found myself fighting it. So what I did here is I wanted to spend as much time on this ridge as possible. So I kind of backed my way from Smith Mountain Lookout here to Cuprum. And once I got to Smith Mountain, it's kind of a straight shot to Black Lake. And because I had looked at the pics and the videos and Google Earth, I knew it was going to be epic. And it was very epic. Same with my South Fork or the Boise River spot. So there's really only one road in, but then there are a number of spur roads to look at. And I can see that the road is in a valley until this climb right here. That's when it pops out above the river and you get all of those amazing views. So you can kind of understand where to push your time and where to slow things down on your trip, especially if you're filming something for YouTube. Once you're done making the route, name the route, save it, and then go to your phone and download the map by clicking New, and then drag the parameters of the area you're traveling to and press Save. Gaia will download this map and any layers you have selected so you can use it even when you don't have internet, which for me is like most of the time when I'm out there. Pretty good stuff, right? You just have to practice it. You might want to watch this video a few times in certain sections if you're new to this, so you can see exactly what I did in those two spots. And here is my last tip. When you go out, always be on the lookout for new places and pin drop them on your map. It's super easy. Now, practicing this will help you be able to recognize spots on the map that might make for great campsites because you'll have seen them in person first. And here's what I think makes for a great campsite. 1, you're on top of something with a view. Those are the crazy canyon rim or mountaintop spots you see all over YouTube and Instagram. They make for amazing views, but they're not always great for kids. 2, next to a lake or a body of water. A serene body of water creates like a super peaceful campsite. 3, next to a creek or a river. The sound of the water rushing by is like nature's white noise. It's so good. And 4, wide open places. These are those epic landscapes that make you feel like a tiny speck of dust in the universe. And they all have a certain look on the map. And the more you can match what you see in real life to the map, the easier it will be for you to fall asleep looking at the map like me and Dream and Topo of all those amazing places you'll be seeing on your next trip. Now, this video is a series of content I'm making aimed at helping new overlanders learn more about overlanding, and it's based on experiences I've had out in some of the most beautiful and remote places in our country. I think the vids on the screen right here might be really helpful to you, so give them a watch if you want to learn more. Until next time, I'm Will from Venture to Roam. Thanks for watching.